COVID-19 has had a major impact on educational institutions at all levels in the educational system. But how exactly has this impacted the teaching and learning experience? What do pupils, parents, and teachers think? What is the best way forward? Benjamin Akakpo was interacting with the authorities as well as some parents and pupils at the Youngsters International School in Kokomlemle. This is what they had to share.
In the midst of COVID-19. COVID-19 came, we saw it, we are battling it, and we shall conquer it, but not just yet. How have schools dealt with the COVID-19 situation in terms of parents, in terms of their children, the pupils, and even in terms of teachers, the teaching experience? We find out as we get into the Youngsters International School here in Kokomlemle. Come with me. It's been over a year now since COVID hit the entire world, and it's had quite an impact on the schooling community as well. But just how much of an impact? We interact right now with the headmaster of the Youngsters International School, William Osa J. Tell us briefly, what has the impact of COVID been on school life at the Youngsters International School?
Thank you. As usual, school life has changed drastically because usually when we come to school in the mornings, after observing silence period, we come out for morning assemblies. Now it's no longer there, and that is a challenge because there are some announcements. When you meet the entire school, you have to give it out, and it transcends, everybody gets it. But now you have to go around class by class to do that, and that is a bit of a challenge. Secondly, parents too are not allowed to even enter the classrooms to interact with teachers. And that one has also been of a great challenge. Now, when we go out for break, we cannot play around as we do all the time. And that one has impacted too negatively on us. For example, we have parents, they will not understand why they shouldn't even enter the compound. You try to explain to them, they won't budge. They will still want to do what the old things they do. And when you stand by it, they will think that you are just becoming too much. And that is of a bit of a challenge to us.
In terms of learning proper, what is the implication of COVID and all these restrictions? What have they meant? How much of an impact have they had?
Thank you. Usually, we just ended our first term, and we have come. And going through their report cards and stuff like that, you will see that it has really worried us because most learners have lost it. We're trying as much as possible to bring them up, and it hasn't been easy at all. So, seriously speaking, it is a big challenge. Academically, it has taken the children aback, and you have to move in at a certain speed. And when you move in at that speed too, the child cannot move that speed because you look at what the child lost, because second term they didn't even complete. The whole of third term for a particular class was not completed. And so now the child has been promoted, mass promotion. They have to finish that of the second term, which they didn't finish, and the third term. And then they're in a new class. It is a problem.
How much of a problem has it been? How have you coped with online learning, for example?
Yes, when we started online, most of the children were joining us. A class of about 40, you have only about 3 people. And when you ask the parents, they will tell you that, look, they don't have the money to buy the gadgets. Even when they buy the gadgets, how to even buy data was a bit of a problem. So we did a little bit of the online thing, and then we switched to hard copy where we printed questions, parents come, pick it up for their children. And we managed to actually make some gains in that field too. Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us. Your name?
Asante Emmanuel.
Asante Emmanuel. What do you teach at the Youngsters International School?
I teach English language.
How long have you been here?
For the past 5 years.
5 years. And what has it been like? I mean, handling all these children under COVID-19 and all the protocols to be observed. How has COVID impacted the learning, teaching experience?
The disease itself is quite an interesting one. And for that matter, when the school resumed earlier on, the attendance was not that encouraging because the parents were kind of scared. The fear was inside and outside. You could feel the attendance telling it. So in that score, it didn't really impact well on the numbering. So the attendance was challenged. When it comes to the classroom itself, the kids having been informed of the kind of, the extent of the fear that they came to school with, it tells a lot about how they will absorb learning, consume understanding, and then impact what they have understood on paper. So it was quite challenging handling them.
Do you feel it has had an impact on grades? At least we've spoken to one or two who have said that on the back of COVID-19, of course, the time they stayed at home and coming back and with masks and all of that, it's impacted their grades a bit. Do you see that?
Yes, I do. You know, the kids had, I could say clearly, they have some learning loss to COVID. Staying home for 1 year is really a loss to learning. The brain said that if it relaxes for a long time without reading or without knowledge acquisition, what you have actually accumulated, you are bound to forget if you don't do repetition in over reading what you have learned before. Because we know that repetition creates deep and lasting impression on the mind. So if what you have learned is not repeated, you are likely to forget them. So it really impacted negatively on their academic performance.
Now, finally, moving forward, what do you think are some of the things that ought to be done, ought to be put in place generally to ensure that we can, well, say goodbye to COVID and also ensure that in our learning institutions, we get back to what we knew before so that children are not left out, they don't lose out?
Like you rightly said, following the protocols is one of the key things that we ought to enforce, not only with the kids, but those facilitators among us. So that at least, the saying goes that cleanliness next to godliness. To be able to stay away from disease, you have to go by whatever it is for you to do to stay away from that disease. So every disease and what you're supposed to do. So if you have to follow through with all the precautionary measures, we will say bye-bye to COVID.
Well, COVID has had its impact, and of course, children in schools have not been left out. And Ijilao is actually going to share her experience. Ijilao, how old are you?
I am 6 years old.
You're 6 years old. Which class are you in?
Class 1.
Class 1. And all through this time of COVID-19, how has it been like for you? Have you liked coming to school with COVID-19 and wearing a mask and all this?
Yes. Yes.
You have? So are you okay with wearing a mask all the time?
I think so.
You think so?
Yes.
Why do you think so?
Because sometimes I will get tired of wearing it, then I will remove it. And some small time I will wear it back again.
But you know the mask keeps you safe, right?
Yes.
Okay. So how do you feel when you're not able to play with your friends so much because of COVID-19?
I think someone will get one COVID-19 when someone cuts on the other person.
Okay. So you try to stay too close to your friends so you don't get COVID?
Yes.
Have you ever heard of anyone who has got COVID? Have you seen anyone who has got COVID? Do you know what happens to them?
Yes, they will die.
They will die. That's a very smart one, Ejilao, who's only 6 years old and in class 1. I wish you all the best, okay?
Okay.
What's your name?
My name is Elsie Adufo Asapon.
Elsie, which class are you in?
I'm in class 4.
Class 4. Great. You've been back in school and you've had to wear a mask because of COVID and all of that. How has COVID-19 changed your life in school?
It has made playing hard, and if your teacher is saying something, you'll hardly hear it. So it makes us fail in exams. And when we are working, we have to work in twos and separates.
So it's made it difficult learning because sometimes you can't even hear the teacher well, and it affects your grades in exams.
Yes.
How about your relations with your friends? How has COVID impacted that? Are you still able to play like before?
No, we are not even supposed to hold hands and hug each other like first. Yes.
How do you feel about that?
I feel very sad and bad.
If you could wish COVID away, if you could get COVID to go away, would you do that?
Yes, I will start everything I used to do.
What do you think do you have any other siblings who are in school?
Yes.
Even at home, how has COVID impacted, your relations?
Even though we are siblings, we cannot hug and laugh with each other and hug. We need to social distance with each other.
What's your name?
Treasure David Lamte.
Churchill David Lamte.
Treasure David Lamte.
Treasure David Lamte. Which class are you in?
Class 5.
Okay. Treasure, how has COVID changed your life, especially in school?
Not much. Like it has sometimes been disturbing my work with class, but not much.
Some of your friends have said that COVID has impacted their grades because sometimes they can't even hear the teacher well because of the mask and all of that. Is it same for you?
Yes, sometimes.
Have your grades dropped since COVID came and you returned to school?
No.
It's pretty much the same.
Yes.
What would you say? How do you feel generally about COVID-19? And what are your expectations? Would you have COVID go away?
Yes, I would have it go away. So that this world will be a free world and there will be nothing such as COVID and no diseases in the world. So that everybody will be free of harm.
But diseases have been with us practically throughout. We cannot wish all of them away. So in the meantime, we have to observe the protocols, wear our masks, wash our hands, sanitize, and all of that. And you do that always, don't you?
Yes.
Well, keep it up. Mr. Lukman has 3 children here at the Youngsters International School in Kukumlimle. But how exactly has COVID changed his life as a parent and that of his children? We find out. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Lukman.
And thank you too for the opportunity. The first thing is that parenting has changed drastically, primarily because if you are a working parent, now you have to tangle between working from home has come to stay, and then parenting equally is always here with parents. So the challenge is that, the stress has increased in the sense that you always have to harmonize working from home and taking care of children. Initially when school were on full-fledged, so you could make time while the children are in school, you could make time for yourself. But now, even children are back in school, but the challenges is still continuing. And then the reason is that you have to always come to pick them because of to try to avoid try to instill social distancing.